Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Visor Visionaries. I'm your host, Litan Yahav, and we're continuing our series diving deep into the challenges of managing complex wealth with the nation's leading wealth managers. Today, I'm extremely excited to introduce our guest, Stanley Robbins. Stanley's the founder of Life Ideal, and he has more than 20 years' experience in the financial services space. Welcome, Stanley. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Cool. Well, Stanley, I want to dive right into it, okay? And we have an audience of wealthy families, of family offices, of wealth managers. It's really interesting always to hear how at the top of, our priorities, I assume, as business owners, we, strive to I mean, obviously there's the means and there's the end, but we need to create a sustainable business and grow, right? And the main way to grow a business is to create more revenue, and more revenue is usually from more clients. Would you agree with that?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. And so if I start from the top of it, when you think about new clients and bringing on new clients, what do you think your biggest challenge as a firm is on bringing new clients, and how do you guys implement overcoming those types of challenges?
Yeah. So I would say the biggest challenge is finding clients that fit our ideal client profile. So we do have a very specific profile that we use as a measuring stick on whether or not we feel you're going to be a good fit with our practice. And so going through that process, I would say out of every 10 potential clients that we sit with, we would put an invitation out to 2 out of 10. So eight of those just do not fit within that profile. And then typically as well, the numbers shake out to where on two offers to become a client of the practice, one typically accepts and one typically does not.
Wow, I love that. That's such a different way to look at it, right? Because the reason I love it is because it should always be that way in a perfect world where clients don't always interview the service provider. It should also be the other way around, right? Because for there to be a really good fit, it's like you know, big difference. Like these dating apps, right? Two people have to to swipe in order for it to be a match. So I love that. Can you tell me exactly what does it take to be in that 20%?
Yeah, so there's a few different criteria. You have to be able to, first of all, you have to be able to afford our annual fee for service without it affecting your lifestyle in any way, your current lifestyle, or your ability to achieve your goals. So, as a fiduciary, if you have to eat out one less time a week, or it's going to tack on a couple extra years by paying our annual fee for service, then you're not a good fit for us. Um, we have we have other criteria as far as age. We typically don't work with anybody under 50 years old because we find that they're just typically not a good fit. Most of the people with money as well are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. It takes a while, to accumulate wealth. So you have to be, at a certain wealth level, and usually age is a part of that. Your personality. So your personality has to fit. We like financial delegators. So if you're ready to delegate your financial lives to us, and you push everything across a table, as opposed to someone who's a do-it-yourselfer, or they want to work alongside us, you're not a good fit. So you got to be a financial delegator. You've got to understand the importance of time, right? So your time is invaluable. It's the one thing we have in this world that we can never get back. Once that minute ticks away, you're not getting it back. So you want to be able to spend that time in whatever way is ideal in your life. And part of that is we take, all of the, I guess, stresses and so forth of your financial house. We take that away from you so you don't spend time focused on that. You just know it's getting done. We reconfirm that as we meet through the year. But you understand that value, and you understand the value we deliver by handing that back to you.
Interesting. So when you have those 10 leads that two of them are converted to a client or that get an offer and then usually one of them will go through it, uh, I'm interested. What are the responses usually from the other eight? Is it around, yeah, I like to, invest in syndications and so I like to do it myself and all right, this is not a good fit, or is it, oh well, I mean, uh like what is the common reason why people don't fit? Is it because of they just don't want to delegate because they're fine doing it on their own, or I mean, obviously the net worth number and the age is a objective aspect. The other more subjective ones are the interesting ones because that's where people can then understand. You know, it's very emotional based. Where do you find that people are more reserved in letting go of stuff?
I don't know if it's really, as far as I guess the broader part of your question is, I don't know if it's being reserved about letting go of things as much as the 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 no fit, I suppose, is that it's typically personality. So it's typically that I mean, it could be that they're not a financial delegator to your point, but then beyond that, it could be um, as we take them through our initial meeting. So our initial meeting is a pro is a feel is kind of I'm feeling them out. So I'm taking them through a process that's usually about an hour to an hour and a half worth of me asking a lot of questions and just getting a feel for who they are through the responses. And as I'm getting those responses back, if they're just if they can't think in a certain way, if their responses are um, not helping me understand who they are as a person, if their responses are even more like let's say aggravated, they don't like the questions being asked, or they're just getting a little more gruff with things. It's all measuring how they're going to fit with us. And again, typically it's that personality. The personality just doesn't fit in some way.
Okay, fair enough. We can move on to the next step because I think we talked about that enough. All right, so you have
Sure.
these clients who go through that funnel. They're good. You offer them to work together. They're like, all right, let's do it. How does that process look from that point to actually onboarding them to be a client of yours? Like,
Yeah, so the invite is to come aboard to be a client of the practice. If they say yes, then they pay us right then and there to move forward for the next year. So they'll pay us to get started putting together their financial plan. At least 2 weeks out from that point, we'll get back together to review their plan and start to implement their most highest priority action items. And then after that, we'll meet again 45 days later to see what progress they've made, and then to implement whatever else we need to ensure they actualize their financial plan and what something we call their financial roadmap. And then from there, we go into our regular meeting schedule, which is every 4 months. So we have like
hold on. Sorry to interrupt you. We'll get to this there ongoing. I'm interested on the onboarding process. Okay,
sure.
so you have this interview with the client. They already pay, and then you put together with them their financial plan. I'm assuming there's back and forth around that, right? Because yeah.
So everything was vetted in the original meeting. So as part of that
Okay.
original hour to hour and a half that we sit together when I'm asking all the questions, they were already sent, and maybe I should have said this on the front end, but they were already sent a list of all documents they need to bring with them to that meeting. So about 20 minutes into that meeting, I do ask them for those documents if the meeting is going well and they're going to be a good fit. And then if not, I never ask for those documents. I finish up the meeting. I hand them what's called the financial roadmap. I tell them that they can use that themselves or with their current advisor, whatever they may want to do. I give them a deliverable. So, it was not a waste of their time. They found value in our conversation, and then I send them on their way. So, if we do keep that financial roadmap, and at that point we have all of their documents as well, we have everything we need for me and for the other subject matter experts to put together a plan.
Awesome, got it. And
Yep.
and and usually there's no back and forth. It's just like you already got all the data, and you can put together the plan.
If we need to call, get some clarity on something, then that could happen, but typically there's not back and forth.
And sounds like it's all face to face, right? So these are very local clients as well.
Yeah, we try to work with clients within about a 5 mile radius of our office. Um, and we don't do Zoom calls. We don't do typically conference calls unless they're one-offs for some reason. but we meet with the client and their spouse in our office in person 3 times a year. No cell phones. You got to turn them off. You got to come in. You got to be focused. I mean,
I
this
love
is
it. I
about
love
you.
it.
This
Yeah, I
is
love
about
it.
you. You can't,
Yeah, I
can't be
love it.
distracted. You got to be in the moment for about an hour and a half. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you got that info, and then you already within because you already have that, you already create the financial plan, and then that financial plan is then 2 weeks later delivered to the client. You don't call them in again, I guess. You probably
No, they
mail.
come back in.
Okay.
Everything's face to
Well,
face.
because
Yep.
yeah, so it's 5 miles. Yeah, so that's pretty easy, I guess. That's pretty cool. So they come in and just walk them through the financial plan. And then is there usually just like, yeah, let's go, or is it well, hold on, I want to do this, I want to do that. Like, how does that usually work?
They typically don't make it through their filtering process if they're going to say, "Wait, hold on," right? Because
Oh,
now
really?
they're because now they're trying to work alongside us again. If you're paying somebody, a professional, for advice, it's because you don't know what the hell you're doing and you need advice, you need help, right? So why are you then going to argue with the advice you're getting with your 2 cents if you don't know what you're doing, right? So
Fair
that's how
enough.
we look at it. So if you're hiring us at this level and at our fee, you're going to listen to our advice. And if you don't want to, that's your choice. But then we're going to ask you to leave. And unfortunately, the annual fee is non-refundable. So you should probably just stick with us for a year and see where we get you because you're probably going to like it.
I love it. Wow, this is such a you understand this is a unique approach, right? To the world that you and I are in. More you because and it's so refreshing to hear this different approach. Right? Let's continue this conversation. All right. So
Let me say this, and this is my frustration with our industry because we're in an industry, we're not in a profession. So what we're trying to do here at our office, our little spot on this earth, is try to raise the bar a little bit and be professional about this approach as opposed to an industry that's just built on, skimming dollars off of people at every spot they can and really not caring about their overall comprehensive success, right? So
right.
we're really trying to raise the bar a bit.
Okay. All right. So you have that plan delivered to the client within 2 weeks of that meeting. You revisit the client about a month, like a couple weeks later, 4 weeks later, or 3 weeks later, right? 45 days in, to review what they implemented. And I assuming the implementation is it both on the bigger things, the investments, the leverage they take, and on the little things, which are like the daily expenses, the budget. Is it across both of them, or is it more on the more strategic things than it is the tactical things?
It's both. So it's also the estate planning. It's also, um, we look at the all of their insurance coverages. So did you put that umbrella policy in place, or did you increase it because you're worth 20 million and you don't, you have a policy at 5 million? Is your property, or all of your properties, are they covered as they should be? When was the last time the estate plan was updated? Do we need to get back in front of an attorney? So it's all of that. It's also about the investments as well. But as we're kind of speaking off camera earlier, the wealth management is just one of about 10 different things that we look at. It's just a small portion, and really having your entire financial house in order, in perfect order, means that you look well beyond just the investments, because if you don't, there's going to be gaps, and those gaps, you might be lucky that they don't ever get exposed, but if you're not, everything you worked hard for can be taken pretty quickly.
So, so you mentioned a really important point there because you said within this space you're in, the actual wealth management or conventional wealth management, investments, finances is a small portion of it. And the more uh, strategic, I'd say soft aspects, which are hard as well, are the estate planning, tax planning, like the more um, insurance matches your needs. Like those are important aspects that they take up more of the plan than the actual, you know, where am I allocating my wealth in terms of just like asset allocations wise. Did I get that accurately?
I would say, yeah. I mean, as far as just where you're allocating your wealth, tax strategy and tax planning has to be a part of that, right?
No,
So
for
if yeah,
sure.
if you're not being mindful of that, you could be really you could be harming yourself. You're paying Uncle Sam a lot more than you should because you're just not being mindful about where you're placing those assets. So yeah, I mean it is. That's absolutely important as well.
Yeah, but here's the thing that sometimes I feel like, you put the wagon before the horse sometimes, saying like, all right, you make decisions only based on tax and not based on the actual investment sometimes, and that's a mistake I see people make, right? Whereas,
Absolutely.
I mean, first
Yep.
you want your investment, your money to be in good places that are, generating ROI, and then you want to make sure that that ROI that you're creating is made tax efficiently because it's important. There's no doubt. But what about the other aspect of like the ongoing expense management that a family has? It's really easy to start spending $100,000 a month, but and you might be extremely wealthy, but you're not cash positive. Like, is that also one of those things that happen in those 45 days where they have to also make those types of adjustments? Or usually people come to you and go through that process. They're so far from not being on top of their ongoing finances, it doesn't really matter.
No, it always matters, and again, they may not make it through the filtering process because you have to understand about first of all paying yourself first. I mean, you get your when you have earned income, Uncle Sam takes their money because they don't trust you. They take it before you get your money. You need to pay yourself first as well, just like you're paying Uncle Sam. So if you don't understand that, that comes out pretty early on, and we're not going to work with you. If you don't understand that instead of seeing the shiny thing that you want to buy, you take the money for that and place it somewhere where it can produce a passive income, which you can then use to go buy that shiny thing and other shiny things as well. If you don't understand that concept, we're probably not going to work with you. So again, there's
But
a
that
lot
sounds
that
like you're
comes out
getting,
through that.
sorry to interrupt you,
But
but you're getting pretty educated people then. Like those are, pretty financially educated people.
there's a difference between being financially educated and just having the ability to attract dollars, right? So there's a lot of people. You can say financially educated people have millions of dollars, but how many actors, actresses, singers, artists, whatever, die in their estate is just a mess, right? So people can do a really good job attracting dollars to their pockets, but they can do a really poor job keeping those dollars, let alone investing those dollars. Right. So,
Right.
I guess bad money habits aren't safe for the poor. You know, I know too many wealthy people that still spend $1.20 of every
No,
dollar
I,
they
I,
earn.
I get that, but you don't want to
Yeah,
work with those people who have bad money habits. That's what I mean.
that is correct. Yes.
That's I think an important caveat because a lot of advisors want to work with those people who have bad money habits because they think they can help them fix it.
Well, and so that's why, again, I think the industry is flawed. The industry tells you to never stop growing your business, to work with anybody who says yes to you, right? Anybody who fogs a mirror can pay a fee. I want to work with you, which is really not the way to go, right? And then secondly, you're running what I call Franken business, right? It's like Frankenstein's, monster. It's all these like you're running, okay, client A likes to be worked with like this. Client B likes to be worked with like this. So you're consistently changing how you're working with clients depending on the client you're working with, as opposed to having a professional practice where it runs only one way and you have ideal clients who fit a profile that work within that process. Right. So it's just a different approach. And I think you can serve clients at a high level when you have a finite number and your process is the same for each one, as opposed to it's almost to me it's almost like socialism as well. If clients are getting paid, I'm sorry, if clients are getting the same service but they're paying different amounts based on either AUM or some other way they're paying, I don't think anybody's going to be happy to find out that they're supplementing somebody else's costs for the same value being delivered to let's say clients. So again, I just think it's part of the flaw in the industry.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's move forward here. So you have those clients. You're at the 45-day mark. You sort of meet with them, see what they've implemented and what they haven't, maybe tweak some things, or fire those who who didn't listen and just didn't do anything, which I assume that also happens. Maybe not as much as often because you choose them at the front end that they probably don't pass that initial threshold. How does an ongoing relationship look like with these clients? And by the way, how many clients do you serve today, if I'm asked?
40.
Okay, so you have these 40 clients. How often do you guys ongoing communicate with them?
Depending on the client, but typically we're communicating in some way, at least monthly, either through a newsletter or through a phone call, an email. I mean, t again, at this level, we typically are talking on the phone if we're not meeting. I think there's a lot to be said about voice communication as opposed to flipping out emails or text messages or whatever the case might be. And we're the people we work with are. Yeah, again, if they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, some of them are not really fond of the newer technology. They want to, they want to have a conversation. They want to hear your voice. Um, but we send out a monthly newsletter as well. Has nothing at all to do with finances whatsoever. You'll never see anything about money listed in there. It's more about health and just different lifestyle subject matter. So that's how we communicate and stay in touch. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, yeah, we meet with them 3 times a year, about every 4 months, and each of those meetings is an update on whatever we were working on to get in place to get their financial house in order. It'll also tell them what their wealth has been doing over that period of time. We'll go over the exact amount of fees they've paid to who, to us, which they already know because it's a flat fee. It's pretty easy to understand what they paid us, but what they're paying their other subject matter experts, their accountants, the wealth managers, whoever we're using as well.
So on an ongoing basis, you talk to them, every 3 months, and you communicate email and newsletters that are, I guess, only for those clients, or are they generally like these newsletters going out to more people than the 40 families?
No, we don't market, so there's
Okay.
just to our clients. Yeah.
So it's really an intimate newsletter to your clients, and then you have these conversations, and if something comes up, you communicate as well. Are you the ones communicating with those other vendors, or are they doing it, and you're just on the call helping out if they need anything? How does that work?
So the subject matter experts,
Yep.
yeah. So I am getting a hold of all of them, putting them basically in a room together or on a call together, I guess. But we're all together conversing about that particular client. So to your point earlier, um, uh, not my apologies. I'm going to forget what you said earlier, but there was something you had said earlier that had made me think about the fact that we get all these subject matter experts in one room together. Oh, it was about the taxes and about where you're placing your investments. And yeah, we have to make sure that the wealth manager and the tax strategist are talking to one another, and that the attorney is there, and the life insurance agent, and everyone's listening to these conversations so that we're all on the same page. That's extremely important. And what we'll do too is if we find out that one of these subject matter experts really isn't delivering value, they're overcharging, whatever the case might be, we will recommend to the clients to fire them, and we'll help them find a new subject matter expert, um, because we want to make sure they're getting the highest level of service for the dollars they're paying.
That's an interesting aspect because when you're in a room with these subject matter experts, there also probably is some overlap between them sometimes, right? Does that
Yes.
does that does that create some sort of, I don't know, uncomfortable conversations? Because if I have multiple asset managers, right? Well, let's just call them wealth managers. Sometimes they're asset managers, right? And one of them is managing a managed portfolio over there, and another is manage a different managed account over there. Both of them want more wallet share of that same client, right? And both of them want to prove that they're doing a better job than the other. Do those dynamics happen in that room?
Not typically. I mean, if they do, then again, we recommend they get fired pretty quickly because it's not about them, it's about the client. And they've lost their focus. They're worried about themselves and the dollars going into their pockets as opposed to serving the client at a high level. And so if I see that your focus is on you and not on the client, again, I'll recommend pretty quickly that we we go to a different third-party manager, let's say for investments, if that's if that's where the issue is. And yeah, sometimes attorneys, accountants, they think they're going to run the show. Listen, once again, I was hired as the financial CEO. I will take care of the clients, financial house, and these other subject matter experts are called in to help with that. But they're part of the team. They're not the leader of the team. And if their egos get in front of them, then we remind them where their place is, or invite them to leave,
Yeah.
if we need to. But again, it's all about the client. It can't be about them focused on themselves.
I mean, it's so important to emphasize also a point here. We talked about this before the call. Like, I look at this as a multifamily office offering. Now, obviously, it's a very broad term, but you're so much closer than like the full holistic multifamily office approach than many other wealth managers I've spoken with who call themselves family offices, but they're not because they basically do provide one of those, subject matter expertise. They will be the asset manager or the wealth manager or both. And so being above as an MFO is, or that quarterback is more similar to what you do than what a wealth manager who doesn't do what you're doing does, right? And so, but with that being said, before the call, you said you don't look at yourself as an MFO. And I'm curious, why not? Because everything you said up until now sounds like an MFO, right? Like,
So you're asking me how I'm different?
no, I ask you, why don't you kind of try to like,
But consider myself an MFO. I guess because I guess you kind of mentioned there too. I see that those multifamily offices typically focus on keeping the investments in house, which we hire that investment, the wealth management out. Secondly, they'll take on. They would love to have ultra high net worth clients. Typically, we do not. We stop at 25 million because we find that anybody above that, and this is a broad stroke, all right? This is broad stroke, but we have found that typically people above that level are harder to work with. They want you to come to them as opposed to coming to your office. They think that, they think that they kind of can push you around a little bit and tell you what's going on because you want their money. And we don't look at the world like that. So we are not going to come to you. We don't want your money. We don't want to worry about, uh, whatever, your family. We're not looking at multi-generational wealth. We're not trying to make sure your kids stay in our practice. I mean, your kids have to pass the same profile you passed, and they're going to have to pay the same dollar amount. And if they can't afford it, they're not invited in. They can't use mom and dad's money. Like there's just different aspects about how we run our office that I don't think are typical for an MFO.
got it. That's a really fair point, and I appreciate that. And I love it that you have a low mark and a high mark to those families that you want to work with. Um, so so the ongoing so you do these ongoing conversations with all these subject matter experts, with the family members to make sure that things are moving in the right direction. How how does that conversation or how does that process evolve over time as you grow? Because or you also putting a cap at the number of families you want to serve.
Well, again, no, it's 40 clients, so that's the cap.
So you don't
But
want more
we've
than 40 clients. You don't want that's the cap.
we do not. So you can go on a waiting list then at that point, because to your point earlier, it is kind of like you can compare it to a relationship. So we look at this as a marriage once we take you on as a client. We believe we're going to be with you until death does us part, right?
Yeah.
And then at that point, we can decide whether or not we need to replace that client or not. But when we have our 40 clients, we're not, unless we're firing somebody or they're firing us, there's no room. There's no room in the practice for anyone else because we can't serve you at a very high level, if we're taking on too many clients.
So, that opens up another question for me. Like, what's the biggest challenge you guys face? Because I asked about the challenge that you have ongoing, onboarding a new client. And I understand that. Really unique perspective. Now, on the ongoing side of serving a client, what's your biggest challenge?
With those like client relationships.
Well, just like ongoing, you have these 40 clients. You have once every 3 months you communicate with them. You want to make sure you're on top of stuff. Like, but if there's one big challenge that you have as a company, when you look at the business itself,
Okay.
what is it?
It's a dual, I guess, a dual challenge, which is um, clients are so used to the way the industry runs that they don't quite understand on the front end how we approach this relationship. And then on the flip side of that, the same issue is true with the industry itself. So when you're working as an RIA or through a broker dealer, they do not understand um, running a practice like this either. It's challenging for the industry. So the industry is trained one way, and it's trained prospects and clients the same way, and those expectations are not nearly how we run our practice. And so it's challenging on both sides of that. I'm consistently in let's say arguments or conflict with the RIA, and then I'm also oftentimes having to re-educate clients on how we do business because it's so different than what they've been used to, prior to becoming clients of ours.
Yeah, I can understand why as well because they see a threat, right? Not necessarily a threat from a competition standpoint, but a threat because now their client now has became so much more smarter working with someone like you, right? As opposed to working on their own with them, correct? I
Would
assume
you say that they now have different expectations? And
exactly.
when,
The client has
yeah,
different expectations.
correct,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. That's a good way to put it. Awesome. Because you did mention divorce, or firing either way, have you had to experience any of those over the how long have you been operating Life Ideal?
We're going on 3 years.
So have you experienced any of that divorce within these 3 years?
Firing clients, yes, and firing subject matter experts, yes.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a comfortable conversation, I assume.
It's not that hard. I think it's probably harder for the person getting fired.
Yeah.
Um, because you're telling them, look, like from a client standpoint, it's saying, look, these are the parameters we set out in the beginning, and you agreed to those parameters, and um, now you're not sticking to that agreement. Now you're making alternate uh, decisions, and it really does not fit well with how we run our practice. And it's not immediately you're fired, but it's let's have a conversation about this and see where we stand. And if things can't get back to where they need to be, then we'll certainly help you find someone else that can help you in the way you need to be served. And then with the subject matter experts, I mean, we're just looking for A players. And I don't know about you, but what I found, unfortunately, it's disappointing. What I found over the years is that it is really hard. It is very hard to find an A player in any profession. There's a lot of mediocrity out there. There's a lot of puffed chests. There's a lot of professionals, especially attorneys and accountants. And sorry if you're watching this and that's you, but they're really full of themselves, and they think they're delivering, I guess, a high level of service, but it's really not. It's even just from a communication standpoint, if you just look at that alone, let alone what you're charging for the value you're delivering, it's very disappointing. We consistently have to fire subject matter experts and hire new ones, and we put them through a vetting process as well, just like we do our clients. And things sound good, they look good, and then you get into the relationship, and then I guess like any other relationship, you start to see in more detail things that you maybe didn't see on the front end, and it becomes disappointing.
Stanley, there's so many more questions I want to ask you about this unique approach to the industry. Unfortunately, we're coming up on time here. Um, as we sort of sum up this really incredible conversation. At least for me, it was really interesting for me to hear you speak. Is there anything you want to add sort of for our listeners? And also, if you want to share ways for people to get in touch with you. And obviously, we're going to leave all your contact info in the show notes, but I mean, is there any sort of last thoughts you want to share?
I would just say, listen, continue. I don't think that I've said anything that's like, you know, out of this world new. I think there's just a great way to serve clients, and it's the way you would want to be served, and just go out there and do that. Don't. I'm assuming that this is other advisors listening to this, and the point being, don't negate your duties to your clients. Deliver value, deliver the highest level of value you can. I would say the regulatory authorities, they're the low bar. Get above that, way above that. One thing I can share that I didn't mention earlier is when we sit with clients, we record every meeting we have. We voice record every meeting we have, and then we go back to that recording and listen to it again. And the reason for that is so you can watch a movie a second or third time and catch things you didn't catch the first time through. So it's the same reason. There's so much that happens in that communication that you miss that when you go back to that recording and you listen to it, then the next time you talk to your client, you say, "Oh, you know what? I remember you saying this," and they know that you were listening. Now they know. I mean, it's just impactful when they feel like you actually care about them, as opposed to they're just another client, another number, and really you're just talking to them about their investment allocation, their wealth management. So I would just say again, go out there and just change the industry, make it a profession, serve people at a high level. Um, if you can do that, you know, I just feel like it's going to be impactful not only to you in your practice, but to everyone you serve as well.
I love it. That's like a mic drop moment. Stanley, this was an incredible discussion. Thank you so much for sharing all this insights with our audience here at Visor Visionaries. And for anyone wanting to connect, I'm going to share everything about Life Ideal and Stanley in the show notes. And if you enjoy this episode, please subscribe. And we have a bunch more conversations coming up. And thank you, everyone, again. And see you all next time. Thank you, Stanley.
Thank you, Litan. Good to see you, bud.